We're live. I'm wearing my spectacles tonight. See who arrives. These are really crap spectacles as well. I'll take them off until anyone arrives with some comments. How are we all doing? Good evening, folks. Welcome to Songs and Stories, Stevie Jones live stream every Saturday at the moment. And tonight I'm going to be looking at the alternative years 84 to 87 and talking about my first band, Voices of Sin, and what we were doing in those years. Very, very exciting years. So much happened between 84 and 87, and I've got so many friends who I still know from that period. It really helped carve me into the person I am. So yeah, there'll be to be a few audio tracks and a couple of acoustic songs, and I'll also be talking about New Model Army as well. Some of you may have tuned in to listen to that part of it. We'll be talking about following them. Hi Mary Ellen, hi Adam. Anyone else there? It rolls up so slowly. So anyway, I hope you've all got a drink at hand. You might see my post. I'm trying a brand new beer tonight. This is Leffe. It's like a blonde Belgian beer, alcohol free. And I did try a bottle earlier, but I'm and I liked it. So let's just get this ready and we'll get the ball rolling. Hi Teddy Matthews, nice to see you, buddy. Anyway, good health to you all. That's better. Cheers. So yeah, it's been a strange week, strange few weeks actually. Just the whole lockdown thing it's actually a lot. I'm finding it more difficult this time because got less interaction with people. It's stricter. I'm trying to keep myself isolated as possible, obviously apart from work, and so I'm just really hibernating at the moment. I'm doing my delivery round. I deliver bread 6 mornings a week. I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning for that, and I'm done by about 11:30 usually. I have a nap, and then I've been binge watching Vikings, and that's kind of taken over my life really. I'm sure many of you have probably experienced Vikings, but it's what I've been, I don't know, I'm obsessed with it. It's absolutely amazing. So I'm on the final series now, so my life will, God knows what I'll do when I'm finished. But I do have to force myself every day to get some fresh air and go for a walk. I'm blessed with some amazing countryside. Some of you might have seen on my personal profile. I'm right next to Fine Shades Woods, so I force myself, even when I'm absolutely knackered, to go and do that. But in terms of motivation, I think many of us are feeling very flat at the moment, and we're just riding this thing out, and it's just really hard. I'm finding it really hard to pick up the guitar and write songs at the moment. I've never been a sort of typical bedroom guitarist who can sit and write just for the joy of it. I have to have aims, and gigging has been a huge aim of my creative career as long as I've been playing music, and that's not there. So I'm finding it really hard at the moment, even though I've got loads of song ideas, to actually sit at the kitchen table and write them. And I really appreciate all of you joining me tonight, because this does give me focus to at least pick up the guitar once a week, and just dust off the guitar, and also stay in contact with you. And I think we all need a bit of company at the moment, and we've all just got to stay safe, haven't we? And let's just hope that the numbers are going to continue to drop. There's so much of it in the area still. I keep seeing people on my Facebook feed who are getting ill, and I certainly don't want to get it. My brother has got long COVID, and he's still really suffering, so it's just not worth any risk at all. We all need to stay safe as possible. So anyway, this is the 5th Songs and Stories one. The first one that I did, all of these are on YouTube or on the Facebook page, was actually, number 1 was all about how I got into music and all sort of influences and inspirations behind it. And I, in that first one, if you missed it, do go back and have a look. It discusses all my influences, but also how I got to be forming Voices of Sin, my first band. And just a sort of bit of a recap, really. I was at Latimer School, and at the time, and I just started playing bass, and I'd hooked up with a guy called Chris Webb, who was a guitarist, and he was more into the sort of local sort of anarcho-punk scene, and sort of he was into Discharge and people like that. And we started knocking around, and we recruited Darren Rouet from my school, who'd also been my school band, on vocals, and we formed this band called Voices of Sin, a 3-piece. We were the first band in the area, in the Kettering area, to use a drum machine. Our first gig, which I didn't play a clip of, I'm going to in it shortly. Our first gig was at a house party in Burton Latimer. A guy called Spencer, he was having a house party, and his band called Figures of Speech were playing up in his attic, and they asked us to go and play. And it was our first gig to about 15 people in this attic, and it was very chaotic. The two of the guys in that band, strangely enough, some 35 years later, or 30 years when I re-met them, I did re-meet them again. The band we were supporting, Anthony Chappell and Andy Guest. They started coming along to my Wildfire Sessions nights, and it was amazing to see them after all that time. And I love those guys to bits. So I hope they're watching. So anyway, I'm gonna get it set up now, and I'm going to play you a clip of the very first Voices of Sin performance. I'm not going to play you the whole thing, but right. Here we go. Now. And don't forget, I was on bass back in those days. Nice one, Lou. I'm going to leave it at that. That gives you an idea of what we sounded like. I'll turn this speaker off because it's a bit buzzy. Yeah, but basically we were pretty chaotic, as you can see. At the start of that, the drum machine was too fast. We had to close it down, but it was almost like Motorhead, but with a drum machine. It was so chaotic, and we had to kind of rein it all back in. But everyone loved it at that gig, and it was very different. It was very different, you know. We had, because no one else was using drum machines back then, and we had a very different sound. Darren was into Genesis and Black Sabbath. Chris was into Discharge, and I was into New Model Army and the Clash. So it was a real fusion of influences there. Yeah, like I say, it was great to meet up with Anthony and Andy. Andy's in a band called Snatchers at the moment. Before lockdown. We kind of all, as we got rehearsing and getting to know each other a little bit, where we all crossed over was in fact New Model Army, because we started going to gigs together to go and see New Model Army, and also we were going to this alternative disco in Kettering as well, which I shall mention later. But New Model Army was the kind of crossover point, really, and me and Darren and Chris, we went to various gigs together, and I'm just going to chat about that, really. I've got some old set lists here. I mean, we were, this is from New Model Army set lists. That one's from Coventry Poly, November the 5th, 1984. Don't know when that one's from. And this was from Bradford Uni in December '84. Yeah, and we were really all into them, and I kind of completely fell in love with New Model Army, and I saw them at the Lyceum in London supporting the Alarm. And I'll just mention some of the gigs that we went to, because it became, rather than going to see a band now and again, it became like a family thing, like how New Model Army is now. They often refer to their fans as family, and I recognised that straight away. It was still quite early on with the band. I mean, there was only a handful of followers initially. This is before they got signed to EMI and everything, and I just felt like I could really connect with the whole ethos of the band. And people were so friendly when we went to go and see them. We'd be chatting outside with them. So the first gig that I did go to see them was with the Alarm. Let's have a look. I've got a gig list here. So I saw the Alarm in May '84, and then the next one after that went back to the Lyceum in the June '84. Supporting Sex Gang Children, and they had this real knack of blowing the socks off anyone that they supported. And then one of the highlights was in August. We went to Brockwell Park. Now this festival was in Brixton, Brockwell Park Festival, and it was a GLC thing, and GLC used to put on loads of free gigs back then in the mid '80s. It was incredible. What they used to do, and there's all free live music, and it really was a real stepping stone for people like Billy Bragg, Spear of Destiny, and the Pogues. I saw the Pogues play there, all for free, and me and Angie Wong used to go down to them. But this particular one, as I say, it features in the lyrics to This Is My Church. The real big one was in August '84, and we saw New Model Army supporting the Damned. Jules played, Strawberry Switch played, Spear of Destiny. It was just an incredible gig, and it was a life-changing experience. And I just remember being on Kettering Station with all these punks and alternative types, all just getting ready to get on the train to go down to London, and it was amazing. Celine Rouet, nice to see you. So yeah, another one we went to, August the 11th, Clarendon Hotel Ballroom. That was good. And then supporting Ex-Mail Deutschland at Hammersmith Palais. That was incredible. And then when we went on to the autumn, God, I went to loads of them. Huddersfield Town Hall supporting Sisters of Mercy. Yeah, the list goes on. Coventry Poly, Birmingham Powerhouse, Rock City, and when we met so many different people, and there was this fanzine that was always kicking around by a guy called John Beast, and it was this particular one. In fact, nearly all of them focused on the New Model Army, yeah, great fanzine. And we used to hang around with John Beast, and we used to love him. He was really funny as well. And we got to know a lot of people on that scene through John Beast. And yeah, it was just an incredible time. It was even before Clogs came in with the New Model Army. So I'm actually going to play you a New Model Army track now. This is going to be... I'm going to miss so many bits out with this, folks. You're going to have to... You know, it's a bit like reduce Shakespeare. I'm not going to get all of the stories in here. I'm just going to do what I can. But it definitely warrants a New Model Army song because they were such a big influence. Not just on me, but on all of them. Let's have a go at this. Stepping out onto the stage, small town star tonight, flexes out for fame and fortune into the light. The way she tears into the heart, it makes me realize that I never understood the hatred till I looked into those eyes. She cried, no one's gonna talk down to me again. No one's ever gonna patronize me again. I'm gonna get out of this town, steal myself a crown. I'm gonna get myself some power if it's the last thing that I do. Heading out of Bradford with a ticket on the train, and a faith as hard as steel and as sharp as any pain. Pictures in the papers, smiling oh so good, while she lies in bed with racing dreams, hot as blood. Love will keep you happy, love will keep you warm, love will build a cushion to keep you safe from harm. But hate will drive you onwards, and hate will drive you upwards, so you can get back all the bastards who ever tried, how they tried to put you down. But when she's gone forever, please don't lay her down to rest in a quiet little churchyard along with all the rest. Throw a great big party to remember that she lived. Give her headlines on the TV to remember who she is. 'Cause no one's ever talked down to her again. No one's ever gonna patronize her again. She's gonna get out of this town, steal herself a crown. She's gonna get herself some power, and it's the last thing that she does. that she ever does. There you go. Ambition by New Model Army. That's off their No Rest for the Wicked album. And wasn't Ed Elaine Johnson in NMA? Yes, he was. Later down the line, mate. Later down the line, not till about 1990. Or maybe 88 he was, for Thunder and Conciliation. Anyway, yeah, that was Ambition. And I love that song. Really love that song. Very inspirational about trying to achieve your dreams, which at that particular time, me, Darren and Chris certainly were, you know, we had the bug. We wanted to do more than just play in Spencer's attic. And we actually got inspired by John Beast, who made this fanzine. John Beast, I should also add, I might have mentioned this earlier on, I can't remember. He actually went on to work with Carter and the Unstoppable Sex Machine, and he was their lighting man. He was a real character, larger than life, really big guy, just really funny. He was from Devon, quite a thick Devon accent, big beard, really scruffy guy, always wearing tracky bottoms. Yeah, one of their songs, Carter and the Unstoppable Sex Machine, has got a chant, one of the most famous songs, got a chant at the start, which is, "You fat bastard, you fat bastard." And that actually refers to John Beast. He's now no longer with us. I did hear he sadly passed away a few years ago, but a great guy and a great inspiration for us at the time. You know, he was the guy we'd hang out with outside all those New Model Army gigs. You know, listen to sound checks and just chatting to the other fans and getting to know people. It was just great, you know. And we'd just jump on a train or we'd hitch. We'd never have any money for anything. As long as we could get into the gig, you know, we wouldn't care how we get back home. I remember sleeping in Northampton bus station once in an empty bus after being dropped off at a gig late. You know, very cold it was. The things we do for music. The Voice. This was our fanzine. This was a fanzine that I started, and my sister Ab helped me a lot with it, and so did Darren. And we were lucky because at Latimer School we had free printing facilities, so we had this fanzine out, and I was in a school magazine, so I'd already got a taste for a bit of music journalism. So obviously it's all back to front. There's not much we can do about that. But looking through it, eventually I will get this online on my website, and you can all have a look through. But it's got a New Model Army interview. It's got an interview with ESP Kinetic, who are friends of ours, who I'll mention later on. Very key band who we met from one of the alternative discos. Live reviews, and here we have Cranford Village Hall. This wasn't actually our first gig, but it does feature in here. And interestingly, this is one of our early gigs anyway. The gig was called Hungry for Change, and it was supporting an Oxfam initiative at the time in 1984. And the gig is in aid of starving people. Now, this is in '84. This is before Live Aid. We were ahead of the game. We were ahead of the game, a year ahead of Bob Geldof. We were shouting about it. We were raising money at this gig for the Hungry for Change campaign, trying to make people aware of the plight of people in Africa at that time, because no one seemed to be, you know, taking notice of it. I'm so glad we didn't release a cheesy charity single, although it might have been quite fun with all the alternative punks and that at the time doing a Christmas song. But yeah, and I met all kinds of people there. Jim Hollister was supporting back then in a band called Mental Touch with Andy Denton, and Mott the Poet was there. Vicky Stewart was there. Linda Coates, now you're online, I know you are. You were there. Simon Loach. This was the first Cranford gig. There was a few gigs that happened after this, but it was the first one that we did, and it was like back then you got to realise there was no decent venues for alternative types. There was a few sort of I don't know, sort of rock gigs going around, and there was nothing going. So we had to do our own. So we hired out Cranford Village Hall, and that kind of set the template for the future. We hired halls out and we put stuff on ourselves. And this fanzine, the gig was very popular. You know, we sold it out. I don't know how many copies we made. A couple of hundred, I think. 25p. So there you go. The Voice. Yeah, and I if you go onto my website, steviejones.com, it's a section called The Vault, and you can find the Voices to Sin section, which has got various photographs, and it's got a link to Bandcamp. You can also find it directly by Bandcamp as well, but all the Voices of Sin recordings that I've got are up on there, including some really horrible bootlegs that one. You know, it's just so raw and exciting though. You know, we were cutting our teeth back then, you know, we're just getting used to being in a band and what it was like, and things happened so quickly back then. Come Christmas time in 1984, still following New Model Army like crazy. My life at home wasn't great. I was living in Little Allington, and I was spending so much time with the band and obsessed with New Model Army and going to other gigs. And I saw various friends of mine were living in houses and just signing on or being at college and that. And I just got tired of being at sixth form, and I couldn't focus at all. I was just depressed. Things weren't good at home, and I couldn't work out why. Basically, my mum and dad kicked me out. I wasn't doing schoolwork. I was spending any money I could get on going to gigs, and I just didn't want to do school anymore. And it was the final straw with my parents, and so I moved into a bedsit with Neil Campbell from ESP Kinetic. Now, Neil was a real character. Let me show you a picture of him. When I first met Neil, he was with this guy called Dougie, and Dougie was about 7 foot tall. Both of them were in drag, semi-drag, gothic makeup. They were really into Virgin Prunes, and they were walking around the Wellingborough Arndale Centre at the time. I thought, who the hell are those guys? And then later on, I saw them at Alternative Disco and started talking to them, and then Neil offered me a room in this house in Granville Street in Kettering. This is Neil, I think about a year later. Can you see that picture of him there? It's probably a bit too shiny there, but a complete egghead. But yeah, he was always changing his appearance, very outrageous. They were very much into the Virgin Prunes and Einsteins and the Neubauten and all this more edgy stuff, Psychic TV, Throbbing Gristle. But he was a lovely guy, and me and him really had a bond. We crossed over because we both loved Bowie, and he said, look, I've got a room in a house. If you're having problems at home, come and live with me. So that's what I did in November, December 84. September of that year, just before the Cranford gig, we actually did our first gig in Kettering. I don't know if you were at this one, Linda, but it was at the Recreation Centre. I haven't got a photo of it, but now the Rec was a place where we used to have the alternative discos. A guy called Sid Iv used to run them there. The Rec is at the bottom of Northampton Road. Just before the railway bridge. It's now like a homeless centre, I think. It's next to where the bowling green is, opposite where the bus garage is, just down the hill there by the roundabout. And it used to be a hall. It used to be like a sports centre, and part of it used to be a room where Sid Iv used to hire out for the monthly alternative discos. They were iconic days. All the alternative types used to meet up there. It was the only place we could go. We didn't really go to pubs. We just go and meet there. Can't remember how often it was, once a month or once a fortnight. But that's where we met up, and we decided we were going to do a gig. We were going to hire it out, and what we didn't do is that we didn't think kind of like we're a small band, just just getting to grips with technology and stuff. We went the full hog and we hired out the main sports hall. Fucking idiots. We didn't have the clue. We didn't have a fucking clue. So we hired out this sports hall and we sold loads of tickets because the fanzine had been knocking around, and we built up a good following just from people that we'd known through school and stuff, and just the scene. So we're selling all these tickets, and it's going to be ourselves and ESP Kinetic on the bill. And we got all of the promotions sorted. We went flying around Kettering town, telling everybody about it. Sold loads of tickets through Revolver Records and Pete's Records in the town. There's a real buzz about this gig, and what we didn't think about was the PA or the lighting. So, yes, you were, Mike, weren't you? Oh God, yeah, you remember this. Yeah, basically, we borrowed our friend Willie Moore's disco speakers, and we had some table lamps, and that was it. We didn't have a fucking clue, because this basic PA kind of, I don't know if we tried it. We hadn't even tried it out before. We told Willie Moore, you do the PA. Yeah, I'll do it, mate. And he turns up with his disco speakers, and of course, like a few songs in, we actually blow the vocal. We blow the speakers. I mean, it was just the vocals that were going through it and the drum machine, and it just they just couldn't cope, and we actually blew the fucking speakers within a few bars of our set. And ESP Kinetic had to come on after us. I don't know if you remember this, Mike, but ESP Kinetic, being a very chaotic project, they revelled in it. We came off stage and we were gutted because we were just a mess. Our set was a mess. You know, the first couple of songs were right, but once the speakers blew, we couldn't hear the drum machine. We were shot. ESP Kinetic come on, and they love it. They love the distorted sound through the blown speakers, and they're hitting metal, and it's all just building up into this kind of white noise with Neil screaming down the mic. It was incredible. And they had this guy called Cliff who sat on stage and had his hair cut live on stage, and all these punks now there watching it, and it was a spectacle. So it's kind of out of the chaos, we managed to salvage this amazing spectacle thanks to Neil and ESP Kinetic. And funny enough, years later, he's actually sent me a vinyl of their set of that night. Isn't that fucking amazing? They were taping it, yeah, at the bottom is Cliff having his hair cut live on stage. It was insane. But yeah, I moved into the house with Neil, and absolutely insane times. We did so much experimental music together as well. Neil was always trying different things and sending tapes off to other independent DIY acts, and a lot of sort of anarcho type projects were putting compilation albums together, and there was a huge network, an underground scene, all done by Post, this is below the enemy and sounds. There was no internet back then. It was all done by fanzines. It was great. It was really good. And we used to have all kinds of characters coming around to the house. We used to have loads of parties. I know Jenny Darling, you'll remember this if you're watching at some point, your band Acne Sewage. I think I met you around that time, but John Lamore, who featured in your band, he was living with us as well for a while, and it was absolutely fucking insane. So moving on, the band, with all this, with the alternative disco and the scene that we had going, we actually managed to get our shit together a bit more, and we recorded our first demo that autumn. There was a little studio that we'd heard about in Burton Latimer called APC Studios, run by a lovely guy called Alan Corse, and it was a little shed in his back garden, and he only had like a 4-track, I think. You know, and yeah, we used to go down there, and it was cheap, and loads of local artists used that in the end over the subsequent years. And our first demo was recorded there, and I'm going to play you a track from it. Now, Linda, you did actually send me the demo of this, because I'd lost it. And Justin, if you're there, some of the tracks from this demo do feature on the cassette that you mentioned to me that you've got. But I'm going to play you this one. Now this one is a track called Closewatch, and I will tell you all about it after I've played it. Nice one, Ted. You love this track, man. I keep a close watch on this heart of mine. I keep a close watch on this heart of mine. I keep a close watch on this heart of mine. I keep a close watch on this heart of mine. And there we have it, Closewatch. Turn this off. Yeah, Closewatch was one of the tracks off our first demo at AP Studios called Praying for the Rain. It's like the only cover that we did. It's actually, the lyrics are written by John Cale, and the structure is a lot different. And we just did our own version of it. And I don't know how. I had this John Cale bootleg I bought somewhere because I was into Velvet Underground at the time, and I loved it. And I said, let's do something with this, guys. So me and Chris and Darren worked it out, and it was Ted loves it, and I know Linda loves it. It just got everyone. Everyone loved that song, and it did appear on a. Sure, it appeared on a local compilation tape somewhere, but yeah, it was just like our kind of anthem, really. And a couple of gigs we did, people were up dancing to it and things like that. Yeah, like I say, if you want to check out any of the Voices of Sin stuff in full, go over to the Voices of Sin Bandcamp page. It's probably the best bet. I'm not going to release any of these things on CD or anything like that. They're just going to be there for people. If they want to download it, they can. And the good thing about Bandcamp is that once you pay for the download, you've then got access to infinite stream on it as well. It's a really good app. I'm not going to be putting it on Spotify. They're a bit scratchy, some of the songs, but they've got the spirit, you know. Yeah, so moving on to early '85, me and Adam Mustin were talking about this earlier on. He worked out he was actually at this gig. We went back to Cranford Village Hall to do another gig. We'd already done some other gigs as well. I can't remember them all. Do you know what I mean? It's so long ago, and I haven't got a comprehensive list. I know we had a cracking gig at the Black Lion in Northampton, which was a legendary venue where so many people played in the punk years and where Bauhaus cut their teeth. You know, that was a really good one. But yeah, early '85, we go back to Cranford Village Hall, and at that point as well, that's the first time that I meet James Sexton, who I then go on to move to Germany with and form Acoustic with, and me and him are still really good mates. So that was he was in a band called One to Midnight, who we were supporting at that time, and I think I might have a picture of it here. Let me just have a look. Yeah, I've already shown it on Facebook, but you can see me playing bass there. It's a bit shiny, isn't it? And that T-shirt I'm wearing is called "Suck on This." It was John Lamore, who I live with. It was his little side project, like a sort of anarchic poetry project. They were on as well, I think. But yeah, that was a really cool gig, and a lot of other people were there for that night, who we got to know. Chris, but at that point, was getting more and more obsessed with Sisters of Mercy. I loved them as well. One of the best gigs I went to was actually Huddersfield Town Hall that previous October. It was Skeletal Family opening, then New Model Army, then Sisters of Mercy headlining Huddersfield Town Hall. Amazing gig. Wayne Hussey was still with them then, and I loved them. All the Dry Ice, Andrew Eldridge coming out of the fog, incredible. And I love them, but Chris was totally fucking obsessed with them. Probably even more so than I was with the New Model Army. So, but anyway, keep that in your mind. Yeah, we recorded the second demo that May. Things were still going really well. We had some new songs together, and you can have a listen on the Voices of Sin Bandcamp page. There's some good stuff coming out. We were sounding good, and we had a cracking gig at the Victoria Centre, and this is a picture of Chris from there. Chris Webb, God bless him, wearing a Motorhead t-shirt, and then that's a picture of my sister as well, dancing there. Steve Rouet, Vicky Stewart, Andy Brown's in there. Joe Leyland was singing for One to Midnight as well. Sorry, but yeah, that was at the Victoria Centre in Wellingborough, and it turned out to be Chris's last gig. That was in May '85. Things just changed really quickly. It just became apparent that his Sisters of Mercy obsession was becoming into the sort of band that he wanted to be in, and me and Darren were going on a more political angle, and it just didn't work. And Chris, God bless him, it was difficult to deal with. He used to have some real sort of toddler tantrums sometimes. If his sister Lisa is watching it, I'm sure she should appreciate it. But as much as we love Chris, he was difficult to deal with sometimes. It just came to a head where we thought that we couldn't work with him anymore, and you know, it's such a shame because we were getting to a really good band. You've got to remember we were the first band in the whole area to go out with a drum machine and to have that kind of sound, and we're building up a following and a buzz. You know, in hindsight, I wish we'd just carried on and sorted out our differences, because I really believe that we could have done something with that. I'm not going to play the last demo, but do listen to it. It's the demo 1985, May 85 with Chris on it. It's got Closewatch, a different version on it, and the versions don't really do the songs justice, but we could have really done a lot more than what we did. I think it could have been John Peel and all sorts, you know. Who knows? You know, the dreams were bigger than us, I think. But yeah, at that time as well, I was still following New Model Army. Stuart Morrow had just left them. That was a huge blow because he was like a bass hero for me. And it was like, oh, fucking hell, this is just unbelievable. And they're going through a huge change. Well, if New Model Army going through a huge change, and me and Darren are thinking about getting rid of Chris, maybe this was all symbolic. Maybe we you know, maybe things just don't work out. It kind of made me think, really. But anyway, cut a long story short, we decided to part ways with Chris, and we recruited a friend of my sister's called Jerry, who we'd met, and we just seemed to get on with him. He just seemed to be like politically in line with us. Do you know what I mean? And he was a lot of things that Chris wasn't. But one of the key things he wasn't a fucking good guitarist. He'd only just started playing. But he, you know, we'd had a good chat with him, and he said, "Look, I really want to be in the band, and you know, my will is there, and you know, and I know I'm quite rudimentary. I can just about play your set. I'm going to work, and we're going to make this work." And you know, and the three of us did get together and start carving out new material. And we, you know, we had a couple of gigs. Our first gig with Jerry was at the Kingsthorpe Old Five Bells, which some of you might remember. People like the Suit Dragons and that had played there, and it was quite a happening venue in the mid-80s. But that gig, first gig we did with Jerry, you've got to bear in mind we had a drum machine, and he had this huge fucking PA, but they didn't give us any monitors. So all of the drum machine sound was out the front, and we couldn't hear it. So it's me, Darren, and Jerry, like just having to try and catch up with the drum machine. It was awful. It was fucking awful. Yeah. So Chris went on. Chris actually achieved his goal, and he formed a band called The Damage Done, which is the name of the Sisters of Mercy song. And they went out and they did Sisters of Mercy covers. They had the Dry Ice, and they chucked in some of their own as well. They were almost like a Sisters of Mercy tribute band, but their own stuff was good. And Russ Russell, you know, who many of you know, produced our Stratigraphic album, and you know, big metal producer based at Pastures Studios. He was in that band with Andy Brown and Aggo, and yeah, that was Chris's project. Yeah, Ted, you should have gone before Moose. Well, I am going to talk about that briefly before I go on to the next Voices of Sin track. Yes, Stuart Morrow left New Model Army at the end of the Bradford gig in May '85. They'd just signed. They'd not long signed to EMI. No Rest was out. They'd been on top of the Pops. They were going places, and at the end of that little run of dates, I remember being in the crowd and it just going round that Stuart Morrow had left, and it was just unbelievable. I just could not believe it. No one could believe it, but he had left. Some weeks later, there was adverts going out saying were looking for a bass player, and lots of my contemporaries at the time were saying, you should go for that job, Steve, you'll be ideal for it, you know. And I thought, well, I'm 17 years old, no, I'm 18 years old, I was just 18 then. I've only been in one band, I've only got a limited experience, I just haven't got the confidence to go and do it, you know. They're going to get someone with experience. But within weeks they recruited a guy called Moose, who was 17 and had never been in a band before. Now I was absolutely devastated by that, and I never got over that missed opportunity. But I'm still glad I didn't do it. I think it would have been the wrong move for me personally. I did go on later to become a solo artist, and I wouldn't be here now had I not gone down that route. I would have been somewhere else, and I think it would have been an interesting role to have been in. But I don't think I would have been quite mature enough to have coped with a lot of the pressures. And I think Moose did a cracking job considering the position he was in. But yeah, it was it's a very strange position that, you know, finding out someone who's less experienced than me getting my dream job at the time. So yeah, me, Darren, and Jerry, we Voices of Stim have still got that following left over from when Chris was there. So I'm going to play you a track that we recorded in a demo with Jerry. Now this is Celine, and has requested this. Hope you're watching. This is actually an acoustic track, and I've got no idea to this day whether I'm playing on it or Jerry was. I've got a feeling I was, but I didn't own a 12-string then, so I've no idea. I can't remember. I'm going to have to ask Jerry at some point. He might remember. It's a long time ago, folks. 35 years ago. 36 years ago, probably. I don't know, 85. I can't count. This is a song. I'd written the lyrics before we recorded it. It was almost like a poem. I've got this lyric book here. I showed it to you in one of the early ones. Got all my old lyrics in it, and poems and stuff, going right back, you know, to when I first started writing stuff down. So the lyrics of this are in there. But I'll play it for you now. This is called No Pastures New. Let me just get there. By noon the sleep is drained away, and you open your eyes to the pale sky. Nothing has changed, it's just another day deep in the brickwork of the city. And you remember the still dream of hope. They said it all happens here in the capital, but now it's like some sick joke, and you found no pastures new. Just look what you left behind you, a creation untouched by man's hands, a god of science. I don't care, it's to see, to feel, not to understand. There's for sale signs up in the country, no one wants to know this beauty, and they're building down in the valley, and we watch it all get thrown away. Here in this sweat, this lonely confusion, you can only watch and wait and kill time, accepting the death of all dreams. The people here, they don't live their own lives, but still you lie in this isolation. Every day you realize get all this with memories of freedom in those landscapes in the back of your mind. And look what you left behind you, a creation untouched by man's hands, a god of science. I don't care, it's to see, to feel, not to understand. There's for sale signs up in the country, no one wants to know this beauty, and they're building down in the valley, and we watch it all get thrown away. Can you still feel this great power? Can you still see the rolling fields? Can you hear nature calling, crying out its final years? And look what you left behind you, a creation untouched by man's hands, a god of science. I don't care, it's to see, to feel, not to understand. There's for sale signs up in the country, no one wants to know this beauty, and they're building down in the valley, and we watch it all get thrown away. Thrown away. Thrown away. There you go. That's the first time I've ever performed that song live. So sorry if it's a bit ropey, but Celine asked for that. Celine is Darren's sister, by the way, and it's great that you're there listening to this. This will be up on YouTube as well, and so if you do want to ping it over to Darren and Steve to have a listen at some point, it'd be great if they could have a listen, maybe, and catch up on a few old memories. But that song, No Pastures New, I wrote it as a poem, and I wrote my mum and dad did actually get separated, and they went through a divorce just after I moved out, and that was one of the reasons why things were so difficult at home when I did move out. First moved out of home when I was 17. I didn't know what was going on. And they put the house up for sale, my family home, and so that kind of inspired that, because I lived in Little Abington in a village, and it was for sale signs up in the country, but it inspired it. But it also, I was looking at the fact of someone living in London, maybe, and or a big city, going back to their village and just seeing that all the land had been sold off for development, and it was all being destroyed, which is very, very out now. I mean, it's so often now we see greenfield sites just being destroyed by development. A lot of it's on floodplains as well, isn't it? And of course, with Weekly Hall Wood, that's all being sold off as well for empty warehouses. But yeah, it was kind of a bit ahead of its time, really, that song. And I still don't know to this day who played the acoustic on the original, whether it was me or Jerry. But I know for a fact that I wrote the lyrics. But at that point, I don't think I owned an acoustic. I might have done. I cannot remember for the life of me. I'm glad it's bringing back some good memories, Catherine Rouet. Right. So yeah, Jerry's in the band. We've recorded that demo. I'm going to play you a track from the demo as well. I haven't played an acoustic version. Now, like I said before, we had gone down a more political route. There's a lot of anger in our music. And you've got to remember, like, in the mid-80s, in the height of the Thatcher years, there's a lot of unemployment. Things weren't great. They were great for some people who were the more sort of into the more yuppie, thing, and the whole believing in the old trickle-down thing's going to work. There's a lot of people setting up their own businesses and things like that, and double glazing salesmen and estate agents and stuff like that, in the suits. But meanwhile, there was printers, miners, who were being made unemployed, and communities broken up by a very brutal police force, and there was a lot of depression, you know, and a lot of unemployment. The police were horrible. It was just a very difficult time, and town centres were very ugly, violent places. Certainly Kettering was. After closing time, punch-ups the whole time. Very tribalistic areas. You know, you'd have your casuals who'd just be, you know, completely tanked up. We used to get jumped regularly, us alternative types, maybe after the alternative disco and stuff like that. I'm sure some of you will remember what it's like. It was a lot more tribal back then. And out of that, I wrote this song. I'll have to turn on the speaker again, I think. This is off the demo that we did with Jerry. Me, Darren and Jerry in between September and October '85. Which is called Safe Territories. Make it work. So there you have Safe Territories, an angry anthem there. Drinking away the years, quiet in the safe territories, no need to move away from this town of happy families. Stay loyal to every tribe, protect and fight for every value. No one crosses the line that hides your fear from the outside. This is your hometown, this is your future, this is your hometown, you were born here and you will die here. Yeah, it was an angry anthem really, about the sort of small-mindedness really. Yeah, I guess it was inspired by small town England, by New Model Army, but I was already, you know, it was a different take on it. It was a different take on it, and we were living it. We were right in the middle of it, and very, very, very proud of that track. And it did go on to feature on a later project that Darren and his brother Steve were involved, called The Next World. I think they recorded a good version of it. But the politics, it kind of, while it was something that brought the three of us together, it also became a bit of a wedge really, because Darren and Jerry were more into the anarcho scene than I was. They liked Chumbawamba and Crass and people like that, and I wasn't. I was more into the more socialist side of it, I guess. And I'd like the GLC rallies and things like that, and I just saw things politically a bit different than them. They were more into sort of veganism and things were very hardcore then. The anarcho scene back then, I found it very cliquey. I used to go to a lot of gigs, see Subhumans and bands like that, and and Conflict and people like that. And I found a lot of the scene quite cliquey, whereas they were more into that side of it. And at the same time, I was starting to get into slightly different, more music as well, because Jerry had got me into Marillion, strangely enough. As you know, going right back to the first episode of these streams, I was telling you all about my varied musical taste. So I wasn't just into alternative and stuff. I was into Bowie and bands like Free and The Clash, Bob Marley, and stuff like that. And Jerry had lent me a Marillion album. Now, Marillion was signed to EMI, and I've read this interview with Justin, who'd said that he respected them for the way that they built up their following, and they'd just done it by going out and playing to people, building up a following by bloody hard work. And they were a very, very unfashionable band, Marillion. And I liked that. I kind of liked the fact that they were unfashionable. And I read an interview with Fish saying, we do not give a fuck about what people think of us. We're not going to fit into any trends at all. We're just going to do what we like. We're going to play the music that we like, and it's all going to be from the heart. And Jerry played me Misplaced Childhood at that time, and it blew my mind. It absolutely blew my mind. I could really resonate with it, because to me, life wasn't just all politics, which was some of my friends seemed to just, that's all they talked about, For me, I was always a romantic, and listening to Misplaced Childhood really hit a nerve with me, and I could really connect with the story of that. And so that was, I was into that. I was getting back more into Rush. I'd been into Rush when me and Mike were at school together, and I'd started to listen to a bit more stuff like that. So it became a bit of a wedge, really, and I just didn't know what to do. So I ended up leaving the band. I ended up leaving the band in November '85, and it was really hard. But I just felt, the lyrics, the songs, we just weren't being creative. There was a lot of other stuff going on as well, which I won't go into, girlfriends, and it was just really, really difficult from every angle to carry on being in that band for lots of reasons. And I wanted to go a different direction, so I actually had to leave the band, and Steve Rouet stepped in on bass and took over. So he was in Voices of Sin, and it was weird because they were playing some songs that I'd written and been part of my life. So Chris had gone, I'd gone, and they Jerry ended up, it didn't last that much longer with Jerry. He went off, and I don't know what he did. I think he moved out of the area for a while, and then they became the Next World, which was the next project for them. I carried on playing bass. I hadn't considered, going solo in any other way. And a friend of mine, let me find a picture of him. I don't think I've got one, actually. I might have one. Yeah, here we go. Oh my God. Yeah, here we go. Basically, I formed a band with an old school friend of mine, Tim Shepherd, from Nicoll Abington. he appeared on the scene. He started playing guitar, and Mark Turner. Mark Turner was a great guy. He was on the alternative scene, always coming around the house, an artist, just a very funny guy, and a drummer. And he wanted to be in a band, and he said, "Look, come on, Steve, let's get a band together. You know, Voices of Sin is split up. Let's do it." And I was like, "Yeah." So we became a band called The Fire Within, and this is a picture of us there. Not a great picture, but you can see it on the website. And that's Mark. Sorry, there's a bit of a glare on this, but you better see it on my website anyway, alongside Tim. And basically, we just started working through songs as a three-piece, and we wanted to get a singer in, because none of us could sing. I couldn't sing at that point, and we put an advert in the Evening Telegraph, which is what that picture's from. And we had one response from a guy from a band called The Bomb Party, who are from Leicester. I think they're from Leicester, The Bomb Party. And he actually responded. And by then we'd recorded a demo. And I'm going to play you it now, actually. So this is me, Tim Shepherd and Mark Turner in a band called The Fire Within. And we had all the ideas, but we didn't have a singer. And this is a track called Strength. So there you have it. That's The Fire Within, which is a band, like I say, myself, Mark Turner, and Tim Shepherd. And yeah, we had a few ideas, but we were rehearsing, and we used to rehearse in this old ballet dance studio down Russell Street, which, funny enough, my daughter went to go and do ballet lessons years later. And we used to hire it out, and a terrible echo in this room. But the only way that we could get there, transport the gear, the speakers and everything, was with a shopping trolley and a wheelbarrow. And Mark used to live down the Grange estate. We used to go down there with these wheelbarrows and shopping trolleys and get the drum kit and wheel it all the way back up. You know, we didn't have transport back then. So when we put the advert with this demo in the Evening Telegraph, and we got a response from the guy from the Bomb Party. We were quite a big name back then. They were alongside Zodiac Mind Warp and Gay Bikers and Acid and Crazy Head and that. And it was the singer from them. He wanted to leave the band, and he was inquiring about us. And it suddenly dawned on me that we just did not have our shit together. This guy wasn't going to take us seriously. You know what I mean? Even a different level. So yeah, happy days really. And it's a shame that nothing really came of that. But you know, it was interesting time. It was around that time actually. Justin, if you're there, it was around that time that we put together the official history. I put together the official history cassette, which was a compilation of all of the Voices of Sin's greatest hits. It was like a defining cassette, really. It did sell pretty well, actually. So anyone who's got a copy of that, it's a bit of a collector's item because I haven't even got one of them. And yeah, and it was a weird time. Tim, you just tuned in. I hope you caught all of that, mate, about the Fire Within. You'll have to go back and watch it on rewind when this is finished. Yeah, it's a shame it didn't really go anywhere. It was a funny time. I was still experimenting a lot with Neil, and I was in another band called Basket Shelf, which was like an off the wall project that Mark did. It was me, Mark, and various other people, including Neil, a guy called Nid, and oh god, loads of people collaborate with it. And the idea was, he saw that there was a divide between Islodge Estate and the main Kettering town. The Islodge was a bit sort of middle class, and the rest of the sort of that end of Kettering was a bit rougher, and the River Eyes down the middle was the divided line. And we used to record these demos actually under the bridge using bits of metal, acoustic guitars and stuff like that. And it became a real focus, and I've actually got a cassette of that somewhere. I haven't put it up anywhere. And we actually went down there on Christmas Day to record stuff because we were so anti everything back then. We really were. We were like out there, you know. Creativity was everything. And Basket Shelf. God bless you, Mark. What a legend. And he actually was a bit like Richie Manick in that he wrote a lot of poetry, and he used to like have t-shirts with stencil stuff on it and that. And he was the head of Richie Manick. He was that kind of character. And you know, I love Mark to bits, and he was one of the funniest guys I've ever met in my whole life. He was just so funny. And he used to say, you know, you've got to get out of this town, Steve. You really have. You've got to do something, you know. And his drive and determination was a great inspiration on me at the time. So anyway, yeah, 1986, I'm starting to go different directions, and yeah, that summer I went to go and see Marillion at the Garden Party in Milton Keynes, alongside bands like Jethro Tull, Gary Moore was playing. That was an incredible day, and it blew my mind going to that gig. And also that summer went off on a big adventure, well, initially down to Land's End, hitchhiking down there, met with some Austrian girls, and then I went off travelling that autumn with my friend Coxie around Europe, and that's a completely different story. I might have a special travelling episode, I think, sometime, because there's so much to cover with all of the interrail experiences. I've already told you that I've in previous streams about my love for travelling around Europe on trains, and the song On That Road relates to that, so I'll hopefully go back and revisit it. But there was a lot of different things happening. I was coming out of the alternative scene, in it, going into something different, getting more into sort of prog rock and Rush, and I've been listening to Genesis and Tull, and just trying different stuff. You know, I've been listening to punk and alternative music for a good few years. so I was kind of coming out of that sphere. I was listening to Led Zeppelin. Tim had got to be into Led Zeppelin actually. He was a big Jimmy Page fan. So you know there was folky elements creeping in there. One massive turning point in 1986 was my mum. In fact, it was the end of 85 or 86. She said, "You've got to listen to this album. Listen to this album. It's a great single called 'The Whole of the Moon' by a band called the Waterboys." I was like, "Okay, yeah. Oh, that's good. I'll lend you the album." So she lent me the album. This is the Sea. And she did not get it back for a couple of months because I loved it. I couldn't get it out of my stereo player. Our rundown house in Granville Street. I just remember playing this Waterboys album, and it was life changing. At the time, I'd gone back to college, and I was studying English Lit A level, so I was getting really into my poetry, into my Blake, Wordsworth, Coleridge, and at the same time, I just started taking my dog for a walk up the fields that we'd found just outside Kettering, between Kettering and Newton and Geddington. And I was going up there. There's 2 or 3 of us that were going up there regularly, and it was just taking me to a different place rather than the sort of dark 80s small town anarcho scene. I was going somewhere else with it all. I was coming out of those alternative years, or going into a different place. And my mum persuaded me to go and see the Waterboys live with her at Leicester de Montfort Uni, and to this day that's one of the best gigs that I've ever been to. It was life changing. It just blew my mind. It blew my mind so much that I went and saw them the following night at Nottingham Rock City and met Mike Scott and shook his hand, and it was just one of those life changing moments really, because what I loved about them was they had so many different influences, and they had this thing where they didn't like to have a set list. They'd have a whole list of songs, and they just go on feeling, and they just chuck in loads of covers as well. Like they chuck in like Purple Rain or My Generation, just if they felt like it. And the band was amazing, you know, with Stevie Wickham on violin, Anthony Thistlethwaite. Incredible songs. And that had blown me away, and I kind of saw something there that I wanted to do. And at the same time, Neil and Mark had said to me, they said, "Look, you don't need to be in a band. Why don't you go solo? Why don't you go solo? You know?" And I thought, I can't do that. I can't do that. And they went, no, of course you can. Look at Billy Bragg. And of course I went, yeah, look at Billy Bragg, you know. Look at Justin Sullivan, who I've been going to see solo at the Marquee, and another couple of little venues I'd seen do solo stuff. And they were like, of course you can do it, you know. I said, but I can't sing. I'm a bass player. No, you can do it, you know. So I actually there's a second-hand place around the corner from us at Mill Road, and I've been walking past, and I'd seen this 12-string, an Eco 12-string. And basically, I just went and put half my gyro on it and paid it off in a couple of gyros, and that was it. I picked up the 12-string. A few months later, after that, someone had sold me some horrible roundback Encore guitar. So I had a 6-string and a 12-string. And at that point, I'd also met Roy Wilde, and I think I'd gone around his house and was jamming with stuff as well, because he was into the Waterboys. So I'd gone around his house, knocking around with him, and me and Coxie we were playing. So I just started the idea of like being an acoustic artist, and that's where that takes us up to really with that point. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to play your Waterboys track. It's time for some light music. Steve, do you remember dancing to that album in your caravan under the bridge? Tim! Right, sorry, I was reading the wrong message there, Linda. I'm going to play some Waterboys for you now. I'm going to dedicate to my mum for getting me into this band. Cheers, God bless you all. Oh, just had a message crop up. Matthew Wright, thank you very much for buying some merch. If anyone just want to have a look through the store, it's there. That's the tip jar, and you can have a scroll through the store. There's the Voices That's In downloads on the Bandcamp section. There's no CDs for that. And there's also the CD section with my stuff and Wildfire stuff, which has got 20% off at the moment. Anyway, this is the Waterboys off their album This Is the Sea. This is called Medicine Bow. And if you've never heard the album This Is the Sea by the Waterboys, you've been missing out. What an album. What an incredible album. And it did blow my mind. It really did. And it took me to a different place. I decided that, I wanted to start writing songs. And I think with them and Marillion, it kind of helped me guide into a different, more poetic angle, more romantic vision of stuff, where I could channel my creative energies and all the poetry that I was reading and the walks that I was going on, and my travelling. It all built into that. So the alternative days are a little bit further behind me, really, but I'm still going to hang around with my mates who are in those types of bands, and yeah, it was good times. Mike Cartwright, I always think of your mum when I hear Supertramp. Yeah, yeah. Well, that gets a quote in This Is My Church as well, doesn't it? Yeah, Supertramp. My mum was ill one time, so she couldn't go and see Supertramp. So my dad took me to see them at Earl's Court on the Breakfast in America tour, and that was amazing. So if my mum hadn't been ill, I wouldn't have seen them live. So anyway, we're getting nearer to the end now. as we go into the start of 1987, I've been going down to a village called Priddy, near Cheddar in Somerset, with a few friends, with Titch Van Gogh and with Coxie. And the Austrian crowd, and we were going sort of, now we found a really good campsite there that we really liked, and it was a lovely village, and it turned out that a friend of ours had a caving hut in the village, and they used to go down there and stay in this kind of like a shepherd's hut thing, and camp there. And it was February '87, and myself, Mark, and myself, Coxie and Titch, should I say, we decided that we wanted to go there because we were and go there on the full moon, because it was a Friday the 13th and it was a full moon, and we were kind of like into the sort of mystical stuff at the time. We were smoking a lot of dope out then, listening to a lot of psychedelic type music, I guess, and a lot of our friends were into sort of the occult type stuff. So I was experimenting with a lot of pagan thoughts back then, trying to find my place in all of those things. And when it was a full moon, it was a big deal, and this seemed too weird. Friday the 13th and a full moon, it all seemed to cross over. So I thought, let's go down to this caving hut, because behind the caving hut there was these barrows, so it was, these Neolithic barrows, or Bronze Age barrows, I think it's called, I can't remember the name of it. Anyway, it's in Priddy, I'll have to look it up. Was it Nine Ladies Barrows, or am I thinking of Derbyshire? But anyway, there was these barrows at the back of this caving hut, so we thought that we would go there, and we stayed there. We had a very arduous hitch down there, and it was fucking freezing. And we're staying in this little caving hut for the weekend, getting very stoned and drinking cider and that. And we had a really horrible hitch back. We just split up, I think. And it was just really bitterly cold. And I think we had to walk halfway back from Northampton, because we did stuff but like that back then, But anyway, when we arrived back into Kettering, there'd been a big party on that Friday. Mark Turner had said he was going to have a huge party to celebrate it. We thought just to be Friday the 13th and off the wall type stuff. And apparently Mark was in great spirits on that night, and yeah. But when we went back to the house where Coxie was staying, everyone just was like, we walked in and you knew something had gone wrong. Cut a long story short, Mark had this huge party on Friday the 13th, and the following day he took his own life, and it was just devastating. That was his big send-off, and we'd been away and we'd missed it, and it really did, it just completely sort of bookmarked the end of an era for many things that were going on at that time. A lot of the sort of friendships that we had and things that we got up to. It was Mark's death was a very difficult thing to take, and it affected a lot of us. And I know that Darren had actually witnessed it as well. Witnessed it when it had happened. There was a lot of other things that went on, which I won't go into now. It affected so many of us, and I love Mark to bits, and I hadn't seen him for a while. I knew he'd been suffering for a few sort of personal mental problems. He'd just been more and more off the wall. I hadn't seen as much of him in the run up to that event, but I basically promised myself that I would do quite a lot of stuff in his honour, and I did stick to that. Adam Mustin, you'll remember you were at my first album launch, and I did actually at the Musician for the New Life album, and I did dedicate to Mark Turner then. So that was a good few years later, and he was a lovely guy, and it's a shame that he made that decision, but that was his decision. So yeah, it was that kind of bookmarked the end of it, and he was such a big inspiration to so many of us as well, though. You know, to just for doing stuff off our own back, for being DIY and just fucking the system really, and just fuck everyone else, and you know, and it inspired many of us also to go on and get involved in the music collective, and you know, not just him, but the whole energy around that time. You've got to remember that in a small town like Kettering, there was just nothing going on, and we managed to create a lot of energy and a lot of good, positive, creative things. So yeah, we're coming near the end of the show now. Thank you very much indeed all for tuning in. I'm going to finish off with one song because I think I do need to plug the recent album. The recent album, which many of you got, is Coming From The Rain. And it's the album that I recorded earlier on last year during lockdown. Well, I wrote it during lockdown and recorded it in the October at Parlour. And this I just thought this is going to be a good way to end things off tonight, because talking about creativity, how important it is to so many people, and how many people are invisible who slug their guts out for it, and they don't get noticed and they don't get heard doing creative endeavours. And I think it really hits a note at the moment, because the news that musicians are going to be in a very difficult place if they want to go and tour Europe, or musicians coming over here. The new Brexit rules have just fucked it, really completely fucked it. Loads of artists, you would have seen it on Facebook and in the media, are up in arms about it. Even people like Daltrey, God bless him, who voted Brexit, is now coming to realise that it perhaps wasn't the best move. So what a fucking mess. And Fish put out a huge statement, which you got to read it if you haven't already. You know, it's just going to make it financially impossible for anyone who's not with a major label to go out and tour, because of all of the paperwork and visa costs, carnet costs, etc. So yeah, with that in mind, it makes us artists even more invisible, you know, than we are already. All of us want to go out there and play, or be heard, or be seen, you know. I mean, I know there's plenty of bedroom guitarists who are quite happy just noodling away with no one listening to what they're doing, or artists who just noodle, but many of us are creative because we want to be, we want to communicate. It's a conversation that can go wider than just a one-to-one, or even this, you know. People listening to your albums, people reading your books, people looking at your photographs or your paintings. We want to reach out there, and we don't want to be invisible. And this is a track off Coming From The Rain called The Invisible Ones. Nancy is standing up on the stage, giving her all tonight, singing her songs of passion and rage. Her dreams are burning so bright. A crowd of 10, well, they're all on their phones, but she doesn't care, it's alright. With faith in her heart, she's as real as they come, and she'll hold on to the light. We are the invisible ones, the ones you fail to see. At the edge of the limelight, hanging on to a dream. Joey pulls over into the lay-by, parks his van on the verge. Late daddy swears on the frosty grass and puts a brew on the stove. Sculptures in wood are skillfully carved, character earthy and wild. He doesn't sell much, but he's king of the road and makes enough to get by. We are the invisible ones, the ones you fail to see. At the edge of the limelight, hanging on to a dream. Emma stands by the gallery door, nervously counting the time. She's planned so long for her private view. She's laid out the food and the wine. She's pulled out the stops to let everyone know this is the best work of her life. A cold Tuesday night in February, only a few will arrive. And we are the invisible ones, the ones you fail to see. At the edge of the limelight, we're hanging on to a dream. We're hanging on, hanging on, hanging on, hanging on. We're hanging on, we're hanging on, we're hanging on, hanging on to a dream. We're hanging on to a dream. There you go. The Invisible Ones finishing off another songs and stories for you. Thanks for all the support. And I know we're all feeling isolated at the moment, but do look out for each other. It's horrible that all we've got is this fucking virtual internet and virtual life out there. It's just bollocks, isn't it? It's just, I just want to be out there gigging again. I want to be out there seeing friends. You know, we all do, you know. Miss my family, miss my friends, miss being able to go to the sea, you know. And yeah, let's hope that the numbers are going to continue to drop. Let's hope that the government continue to be having supplies enough to be pushing the vaccine out. Let's hope that they can give everyone 2 vaccines, not just leave it at 1, because it's going to be job half done. I'm not going to go down the route of political rants tonight. I think enough of you know my viewpoints on this absolute shit show with of a government we've got in charge at the moment. They've only just closed the borders, and you know we've got nearly 100,000 dead. So there's blood on their hands. But we've got to ride through this, folks, and we will get there. We will get there. Just stay safe, and you know I'm really missing the guys in the band a lot. Just rehearsing was a real bond for all 4 of us, and I'm looking forward to the day when we can get back in the studio and get back in writing songs again. Yeah, anyway, no idea what I'm going to be doing next songs and stories. I might do a request show at some point, and just ask you all just to put songs forward, really, and do it that way. What about that? Let's have a think. Anyway, we shall see. Have a good week, people. Thank you so much for all for tuning in again. Love you lots. Have a good weekend. Take care.